guys, and welcome to a deck tech video for Esper, Malcom and Tymna. With me today I have a Malcom and Tymna. Ben and Damon is gonna help out brew this commander pairing for us. So who is Malcom and who's Tymna among you two?
I think we're both Malcom. Let's be real.
Yeah. If I had to choose, he would definitely be Malcom. I mean, it's just his personality. I mean, I like drawing cards. He likes making a lot of mana.
So what is this deck like going for it? Why play Malcom when you can play Tymna and Crom, which gives you red and more card draw? Or why not play Malcom and some red pairings instead? Why Esper here?
So I think that Malcom serves a really important role for this deck, and that's making mana. By mulling for Malcom and just getting a turn 1 Malcom, you're gonna guarantee that you have a ton of mana the entire game. And while red gives you access to Dockside, and you could make some extra mana off that, this is just gonna be the most consistent pairing of just you make mana with Malcom and you use that mana to cast Tymna and draw cards. So now you have two commanders, one that draws cards and one that makes mana. What more could you want?
Yeah, he put that really well, and the deck's just consistent because of the fact that we are just mulling aggressively. We get our commanders out really early, so we're not like, we're getting around certain stacks pieces even then, and if we have our commanders in and there's a stacks player on board, we just keep drawing cards and creating more mana and then wait for the perfect opportunity to try to win.
So you basically look for like turn 1, turn 2 Malcom at the best.
I would go aggressively for turn 1 Malcom, like mulligan to 2 if you need to.
Okay.
Like we have the land, Mana Crypt, Ancient Tomb Chromox, Jeweled Lotus. Even like sometimes I've seen Ben crack an LED on turn 1, and I've done that too, like play out a few things, crack an LED, cast Malcom, turn 2 cast Tymna, refill your hand, and then just keep going after that. So it's really, really important, even if you have to dump a lot of cards out of your hand to get this out really early.
So how has this deck been performing kind of in the current metagame of such? Like how is it running against the red Adnas turbo decks and the rule of law stacks?
From my experience, it keeps up with other turbo decks. Obviously, like certain turbo decks are meant to go faster. That's not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to win on turn 3 because I mean we can play Malcom, untap, cast an ad nauseum, cast like any of our like 5 mana payoffs, or we can cast Tymna and then untap and try to win from there. So really we're not trying to win on turn 1. Like that's usually not what we're trying to do. We're trying to start our value and then win pretty early. And we can make enough mana where we're at turn 3 and we have 7 mana to cast a Pier. Versus stacks decks, we really just have to get Malcom out, get Tymna out, get mana, get cards, and then try to win from there. Because we really can't just win through a stacks decks. That's why we also play Cyclonic Rift, because we need that interaction. And stacks has been more relevant lately because there's a lot of turbo going and it's very powerful. Obviously, Ad Naus is like the most feared card and it has been for a while.
Yeah, you can really just sit there and build mana with Malcom and build card draw with Tymna until you can overload and get rid of everything.
It can't be understated that in a board stall like under stacks, the fact that Malcom has a vision, so you always there's always someone who doesn't have a flyer, so you can hit them, make a treasure, draw a card. There's always someone.
True. So this deck clearly wins like very similar other decks with this big peer into the abyss, and I mean just guessing that once you've reached the unlimited hand size with all the fast mana, you're trying to finish the game with a fastest Oracle, Consult or Tainted Pact, as you're on the Demir colors.
Yeah, that's right. We have a lot of really big payoff spells from Peer into the Abyss, Yawgmoth's Will, and any of those, if you resolve them, you're more than likely able to assemble these Thassa's Oracle, Tainted Pact, or Demonic Consultation combo.
Yeah, especially because we have a limited amount of win cons because we are an Esper, so we don't have Breach, so we can't do those lines, but we do have Meme Betrayal, so we can seal their win cons. We have now Dothy Voidwalker, which can also steal the win cons, and now, like, we had a problem with our deck before we were playing Doomsday. It was that if our Oracle and our Yawgwill are both in our graveyard, it's really hard for us to win the game from that point, and it's really key that Doomsday shuffles all the cards in our graveyard into our library so that we can get them back, and that's why we play all these recursive spells, so we can just keep getting them back and keep playing them again, so we can find a way to win the game after a big payoff spell.
And you've also included things like Frantic Search and Gush to basically crack Doomsday pile, which Tymna is also good at as well. But how does it feel playing Doomsday with the existence of Oppo Agent in the format? That's almost like suicide. Or
I have yet to be gotten by an opposition agent. They're not that common because not every deck plays it. So I have yet to have my Doomsday got by an op agent. It's really not common.
It's a very situational card, and it is more of a stacks piece rather than like an active kind of proactive card, because when you're casting it, you're either holding up mana to specifically cast it, or you're just doing it end step. So like if you say you're the first player in turn order, you have a land, you have a mana crypt, you pass the turn, no one's done anything, you cast the opposition agent, well now they're not going to do anything into it, so it's just a stacks piece. They're not going to play into it because they know it's there, and if you flash it in, they can respond, they can do something response to it. And also Hull Breacher is just a much better card in comparison. It's the same mana cost and it does a lot more, and it's much more relevant.
I think something I've heard other people say quite frequently is I don't want to be in a position where I'm casting opposition agent, because that means I'm going in the wrong kind of pathway for what my deck wanna go for. Like just like you're saying, this is a great stacks card to like control the game, but if you're not trying to control the game, you're trying to win, this is kind of slowing you down in a tiny bit.
I just wanted to say, to be honest, when I'm playing Doomsday, I'm more afraid of Hullbreacher than I am Opposition Agent, because Doomsday piles are really hard if you can't draw cards.
That's a really good point.
So besides Doomsday being a little bit of a rare card, you don't see that often, you're also playing a really strange card for this deck, which is Mind's Desire, a storm card. Really expensive, especially when you want to win the game through an odd nos. Why did you include that card for this deck?
So Mind's Desire is definitely a bit of a spicier card to include here. It serves a particular role where, let's say I am in a position where I could Demonic Tutor for ad nos, but I expect that ad nos is not going to be countered because I don't have enough protection for it. So in that situation, I might go for a Mind's Desire, because you can't really effectively counter a Mind's Desire without either a Mindbreak Trap or a Silence or a Flusterstorm.
Yeah.
So barring those three cards, it's uncounterable. And it's going to hit me a lot of gas that I can win that turn. And the deck is really good at making mana, so the 6 mana for the mana cost of Mind's Desire isn't actually too bad.
I'm just guessing that you're casting it with the power of Yawgmoth's Will. You have a lot of rituals and variants like Dark Ritual and such in your graveyard, and then you just unload the entire ritual mana, build up Storm, and then you cast Mind's Desire either from your hand or maybe from the graveyard in some form of way. I'm just guessing that's kind of how it's done.
Often, yeah.
Well, even just like casting Mind's Desire, reloading with a Yawgwill, like especially if you cast Mind's Desire, you hit Yawgwill off the Mind's Desire, you can then reload after casting all your rituals again, and then cast the Mind's Desire again, and then you're just set to win the game.
One of my favorite Mind's Desire plays is using Emergence Zone. And when someone is trying to win, you Emergence Zone, and everyone has already cast a lot of spells to try to counter their win, and then you just cast a Mind's Desire, and you win on top of them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Uncounterable too, pretty much.
Yeah.
How efficient is Doomsday? Like, how cheap in mana can you actually get there? How, like, I imagine that there's some really crafty Doomsday piles running around, because the cards that have been going in for the Doomsday piles have been upgrading quite a bit. So how do you win, and how little do you need to win from this?
So the most important thing with Doomsday is to be able to draw a card immediately after you resolve it. So assuming you draw exactly one card off after the Doomsday, there's a 0 mana way of winning afterwards. And the cards for that pile is going to be Gush, LED, Git Probe, Yawgwill, and Thassa's Oracle. All of the piles got a lot better once Thassa's Oracle was printed. So for this pile, you draw Gush. I'm assuming you're only drawing one card. You draw Gush. You cast Gush, draw LED and Git Probe. You cast LED, and then you cast Git Probe, holding priority, sack LED for 3 black. Then you draw Yawgwill. Then you cast Yawgwill, recast LED, crack it for 3 blue, Git Probe to draw the Thassa's Oracle, and then play Thassa's Oracle.
Very clean and very simple. And you can win with this from straight up only 3 black mana. That's pretty good.
So yeah, you don't need any other mana. It's very powerful.
It's a 1 card combo, 3 mana. That is good. That should see play a lot more, in my opinion.
I agree. It's very consistent. Thassa's Oracle made Doomsday a lot better.
And some of the cards we've already looked at here are already great. I mean, Lion's Eye Diamond, That's amazing, because that's gonna help you get your Malcom into play. Turn 1. I'm guessing you guys might even sacrifice your hand size for a turn 1 Malcom this way, with Lionside Diamond.
So I don't want to do it, but
No,
I
but-
sometimes do. What I've done twice is crack LED to play turn 1 Malcom and Tymna.
That is great. That, like, turn 1 Tymna, turn 1 Malcom, no hand size, that's perfect, because now you're just gonna refill. But the thing is that this deck is mulliganing aggressively, so eventually you're gonna go down to like 5 cards, or maybe something around that sort, and then sacking Lions of Diamond for a turn 1 Malcom is... Git Probe is already amazing inside this deck. Thassa's Oracle is already amazing inside this deck. Yawgmoth's Will is already amazing inside this deck. I guess the only, quote, bad card here is Gush. That is also a little bit awkward together with your Odnos. I mean, 5 mana from a Gush, 5 life, sorry. That's gonna hurt. But in other words, the entire pile seems kinda great.
I actually don't think Gush is that bad off Adnos, and I'll tell you why. So yeah, you're paying 5 for that card, but you're actually playing 2.5 for 2 cards. And it's better than that, because now you can play a Vampiric Tutor, and then you can Gush into it. And doing that post Adnos is great. Top deck Tutor, you're gonna hit a top deck Tutor. So you can like E-Tutor for Mana Crypt, then Gush, and now you net mana off that after that Adnos.
Even despite having like Mind's Desire and Peer into the Abyss or Bolsa's Citadel and Gush and all these expensive cards, without Adnos in our deck, our average mana value is 1.29, which is really, really powerful.
And if you guys don't believe us, there's a link in the description of the video to see that it is actually 1.29.
The pile I described is not my favorite pile because you have to crack LED and so you can't have protection. So I talk a little bit more about Doomsday piles in my primer that you can find in the description below.
If you want to see details of how you can be crafty with this. But besides winning from 3 mana cost Doomsday, you also have Necropotence and Emergency Zone inside this deck.
Alright, so Necropotence is a really cool card. It's 3 mana, with a lot of life you can exile a lot of cards, and with Emergence Zone you can actually use those cards before they go away, before you have to discard down to 7. So a key interaction we use in this deck, especially if you're being silenced and you can't cast spells. So, for example, you cast a Necropotence in response, your opponent casts a Silence. Well, okay, you exile, say, 30 cards, you go to your end step, you go to your cleanup phase, and you discard down to 7. However, in response to the exile triggers from Necropotence, you can actually activate Emergence Zone because there's now a new cleanup step, and the Silence is gone, so now you can use Emergence Zone, you can cast the Yawgmoth's Will, and now you can use the cards you discarded to hand size. Now, it's really important that you don't activate your Emergence Zone in the first cleanup step if you do have a silence effect on you, because if you do that, your Emergence Zone will also end in the first cleanup phase. So it's really important that you activate it in the second after the Necropotence triggers are on the stack, and then you can just cast all the spells again and then cast everything from the yard.
Now, this sounds actually kind of strange. If I read Silence, your opponent can't cast spells this turn. Now, luckily for us, we actually have a judge here with us. Ben, could you actually explain Silence and Emergence Zone and turns here?
Sure. So what's happening here is that we have to look at the rules for cleanup step. So the cleanup step does a few things in a specific order, and the order of that matters a lot here. And so you can see all of this in Rule 514 in the comprehensive rules.
And there's a link in the description below to those rules as well. So don't worry, we're not sitting here making things up.
So the first thing that happens in the cleanup step is that you discard down to 7 cards. Remember that you're discarding into your graveyard because Necropotence is a trigger. We don't have to worry about that yet. The second thing is that you remove all damage from permanents and all until end of turn and this turn effects ends. The third thing that happens in the cleanup step is that the turn ends if there are no triggers to be put on the stack, but there are because of Necropotence, which means that everyone's going to get priority, and we have already removed all this turn effects, which means that you can cast spells and you could activate Emergence Zone because you have priority.
In other words, you clean away all the turn effects, but then a priority is being sent around the circle. I have a question. If there are no triggers on the stack, is the turn just gonna end Or is it possible to activate Emergence Zone somewhere down the line here?
So the only thing that's giving you the opportunity to activate Emergence Zone in this second cleanup step is the fact that there's a trigger on the stack. So let's say you didn't actually have to discard down to hand size, you drew up to exactly 7 cards, then what would happen is that you don't discard, Necropotence doesn't put a trigger on the stack, and then that if clause doesn't get met, so we actually just move to the next turn.
Oh, interesting. What about if we're creating several cleanup steps? For example, the Gitrog monster is creating several discard loop steps. Is that also removing every single end turn effect such as silence and things?
It works the exact same way. You're absolutely right.
Interesting. And you don't need much to win. You basically need a Thassa's Oracle and Mono Consultation, and that's just blue, blue, black, 3 mana. Should be easy to acquire. So how should you be piloting this deck? We know how you win, we know the end state, but what is the game plan? What is the mindset when you go into the game with this pairing, Esper?
The real key thing we use in the stack is mulliganing aggressively for Malcom. We mentioned it before, but that is really, really important because I play games with this deck with turn 2, turn 3 Malcom. I play with this deck with a turn 1 Malcom, and pretty much every time I have a turn 1 Malcom, I'm in the game, I'm doing a lot of good things, and I'm keeping up with all of the other decks at the table. We stay away from the reactive and like the staxy kind of cards, and we more lean towards like Grand Abolisher, Ranger Captain, Dothy Voidwalker, Esper Sentinel, cards that are like must answers and cards that create a lot of mana or card draw for us. So we also have creatures such as Dark Confidant to get around Hole Breacher. We have Phantasmal Image to copy any creature on the battlefield. And then we also have Spectral Sailor as a flash pirate because it's the best 1-drop pirate because it has flash and it draws a card.
And you gotta find something with Ranger Captain of Eos.
Fetch targets with Ranger got a lot better since Esper Sentinel got printed, and that card is the powerhouse. We have no way to actually pump it, but even the one, power, 1 mana, it's very powerful.
So it feels like you have something of a almost mid-range plan with this deck. You have Dark Confidant, Esper Sentinel, and a few like value working creatures.
The deck is very good at winning very quickly with an ad nauseam, but it's perfectly happy playing a long game, sitting back on both commanders and a couple of the other creatures that generate value. And then once you're in a space you're confident you can win, you just play a Grand Abolisher with a few counter backup and then try to present your win after a mid-rangey grind.
Now that's it for this video, but if you're looking for more specific information, where can people find you, Ben and Damon? Where, if people want to ask specific questions regarding specific card choices?
You can find me on Twitter and Discord. I'm sure that we'll put it in the description below.
Yeah, same here. I'm on pretty much every social media platform, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but mainly Discord nowadays. And we'll have that down in the description for you.
And I believe there's also in the Turbo Discord, there's an Esper variant, right? With this
Yeah. In the Turbo Discord for cEDH, there is an Esper, and they've posted a lot about different Tymna Malcom variants, and we'll post our list in that Discord for you.
Damon and Ben, thank you for coming here and helping us learn more about Malcom and Tymna. It was a blast having this little deck tech with you guys.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Take care, everybody. See you around. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, feel free to share my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link in the description below of the video will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.